Hey there, lovely soul. Welcome back to Noah's Stories. Today's story isn't just about a fake marriage. It's about discovering something real in the most unexpected way. Let's begin. The acrid scent of smoke still clung to Jennifer Bennett's tightly braided hair as she stepped out of the burning warehouse. Her body, sweat-soaked, steady, and strong, carried an unconscious teenager away from the chaos. The silver beads woven into her braids caught the early morning light, tiny sparks against the backdrop of ash and flame. At 30, Jennifer had saved more lives than she could count, but every rescue still hit her like the first, heart pounding, adrenaline coursing. "Got another one," she shouted to the medics already waiting. Her amber brown eyes swept the scene, scanning for anyone still in need of help. The blaze had ignited just before dawn, and Engine 14 had been first on the scene. After the debriefing at the station, Jennifer collapsed onto the bench in front of her locker, exhausted, satisfied. Anita Baker's soulful voice poured through her earbuds, her way of grounding herself in a life filled with chaos. Then her phone buzzed, a new email. She glanced at it and her breath caught. First Responders Housing Program. Final notice. Jennifer had been eyeing the program for months, a shot at homeownership. Something stable, safe, something hers. But the one condition? Marriage. What a cruel twist. She could charge into burning buildings without flinching. But marriage? That word alone brought back memories of hands that once promised to protect and ended up doing nothing but hurt. Jennifer had just finished splashing water on her face after the debrief when a knock sounded at the door. "Bennett," Captain Monroe called out. "Your old boss is waiting in the lounge." She frowned. It had been 6 months since she resigned from her cybersecurity job. She had once led the risk analysis team until she was pushed out for speaking up during a board meeting. Since then, she'd cut all ties with that world. But when she walked into the lounge, time stopped. Chris Miller, CEO, former soldier, her ex-boss, and the man who'd made her question everything, stood waiting, like a ghost pulled from her memory. Pressed shirt, neatly styled black hair, and those familiar green eyes clouded with fatigue. "Jennifer," he said, voice low but urgent, "I need to talk to you." She crossed her arms. "I thought we'd said everything that needed to be said." Chris sighed. "I was wrong. About a lot. The system you warned us about. It's cracking. I need you back." Jennifer shook her head. "I don't work for you anymore." "You don't have to," he replied, "but you can help. I'm ready to confront the board, but I can't do it alone." She narrowed her eyes. "Why would I help you?" Chris hesitated. "Because you need a place to call your own, and I need you to help make things right. If we got married, you'd qualify for the housing program, and I'd have the expert who can fix this mess." She stared at him. "Did you just propose a fake marriage?" He nodded slowly. "Just for a while. No strings. Unless we find a reason to tie them." City Hall was cold and quiet in the early morning light. Jennifer stood in front of the mirror in the waiting room, adjusting her crisp white blazer dress. Her fingers found the silver beads in her braids, a nervous habit before every big moment. Chris waited just outside, looking like he was about to walk into a corporate strategy meeting. Gray suit, deep-toned tie, hair perfectly swept back. He glanced at his watch. "Housing program deadlines in 3 weeks. We stay on schedule?" he said, voice steady. "Unless you're having second thoughts," Jennifer asked, her fingers cracking knuckles quietly. "No," Chris replied, though there was tension in his eyes. "Unless you are." "I've run into burning buildings. A fake marriage doesn't scare me." Inside the officiant's room, everything moved quickly. No vows, no guests, no sentimental ceremony. When it came time for rings, Chris pulled 2 simple gold bands from his pocket. "They were my grandparents," he said gently. "My grandfather gave them to me before he passed. Told me they belonged in a marriage built on trust." Jennifer hesitated. "We can't use family heirlooms for something fake. Then let them be used for something good at least." They exchanged rings. No kiss, just a handshake, but their fingers lingered longer than necessary. "Congratulations, Mrs. Miller," the clerk said, stamping the certificate. Bennett, Jennifer corrected without pause. I fought hard to keep my name. I'm not losing it to a marriage that isn't even real. Chris nodded, offering a flicker of a smile. Bennett it is. Chris's townhouse in North Atlanta was just like him, tidy, structured, and meticulously controlled. When Jennifer moved in, she felt like a splash of color bleeding across a grayscale canvas. Your room's upstairs, first door on the right, Chris said in his even tone. I cleared it out. You can change anything you want. As long as I don't touch your office? She asked, half joking. Exactly, he replied. Also, a few ground rules. They sat across from each other in the kitchen, one with black coffee, the other with a fruit smoothie. No touching personal belongings, Chris began. No digging into personal life unless necessary, Jennifer added. No guests at the house. No emotions interfering with the arrangement. Both nodded. Clear terms, no complications, but real life has little regard for neat contracts. Jennifer soon noticed Chris had a strict 5 a.m. routine, French press coffee, soft jazz, and a military-level morning ritual. She used to think he was the kind of man who needed no one, until one night she came home exhausted after a long shift and found the kitchen light still on. Chris sat slumped over his laptop, 3 cold coffee mugs around him, but what caught her eye wasn't the fatigue. It was the sheet taped to the fridge, her shift schedule, printed and carefully placed next to a list of her favorite takeout spots. I figured it'd help to know when you're home, he said simply when he saw her staring. Jennifer didn't reply, but that night, instead of going upstairs, she opened the fridge, pulled out noodles and vegetables, and started cooking. What are you doing? Chris asked, genuinely surprised. Making dinner, she said. You need something besides coffee and protein bars. He smiled, the first one she'd seen since moving in. Light. Real. A little awkward. In the days that followed, they shared more. Lazy breakfasts after night shifts, R&B echoing through the kitchen, arguments over whether spices should be arranged by color or alphabet. And then one night, Jennifer danced while cleaning, earbuds in, hips swaying to the beat, and Chris stood silently at the doorway, watching, not saying a word. But his eyes, soft, stunned, made her turn away quickly, heart thudding louder than the music. Neither said a thing, but both knew something had begun. 2 weeks after their courthouse wedding, Jennifer received the formal invitation from her chief, the annual fire department gala at the Grand Regency Hotel. She was an honored guest, and her husband was expected to attend. This is a big deal, she told Chris over the sizzle of stir-fry. Everyone I work with will be there. They know me better than anyone. If we don't get this right, they'll see through everything. Chris looked up from his laptop. Then we practice. That evening, under the golden kitchen lights, he held out a hand. One dance. To rehearse. Jennifer hesitated, then placed her hand in his. To her surprise, he was a graceful dancer, steady, thoughtful, not stiff. They'll ask how you proposed, she murmured as he spun her gently. I'll tell the truth, Chris said, that we were having coffee in that old diner, and I realized I didn't want to lose you again. She blinked. That's not in the script. It's still true. On gala night, she wore a sapphire gown that hugged her like a second skin. Her braids were swept up into a high bun, silver beads glinting. Chris, in a tux, paused when he saw her. I got you something, he said, offering a small box. Inside was a delicate sapphire bracelet. We agreed. No gifts, she said. It's for the role, he said lightly, but his voice wasn't all play. When they entered the ballroom, the crowd of uniforms and dignitaries turned. Chris placed a hand on the small of her back, a familiar gesture between couples, but it made her shiver slightly. Is that him? Captain Monroe's voice came from behind. The one who let you walk away? Chris didn't flinch. And the one smart enough not to make that mistake again. Jennifer glanced at him. That line wasn't in any rehearsal. After dinner, the music started for the opening dance. Chris leaned in. A real dance this time? Just one, she replied, heart beating fast. On the dance floor, they moved like they had 100 times before, but this time, every touch, every glance, felt alarmingly real. Why did you come back? She asked. For you, he said, eyes locked on hers. And for what we're both afraid to admit. At that exact moment, a loud explosion rocked the ballroom. The chandelier trembled, smoke poured from the front lobby, and screams echoed. Jennifer kicked off her heels. Someone set that fire on purpose. Chris grabbed her hand. It's us. We're the target. Smoke poured into the grand ballroom. Shattered glass littered the floor. The fire alarm blared in deafening pulses. Instinct kicked in. Jennifer didn't think. She moved. Captain Monroe, she shouted over the chaos. We need immediate evacuation. Use the side exit near the kitchen. Without waiting for a response, she kicked off her heels, tied her braids back, and charged into the crowd. Police are on their way, someone yelled, but Jennifer knew. Every second counted. She pulled a wounded server towards safety, guided an elderly couple down a service stairwell, but as the crowd thinned, one terrifying thought clawed at her chest. Chris, where is he? She bolted toward the lower level, the hotel's network hub. Chris had mentioned he'd brought his laptop with sensitive evidence. If he stayed to secure it, the door to the server room hung open. Smoke rolled out in thick waves. Jennifer crouched low, moving with the precision of a seasoned firefighter. Chris, she called, voice raspy, answer me. A faint cough answered her. She found him slumped against the wall, tuxedo singed, dust and smoke staining his shirt. In his hands, the laptop, still protected. You weren't supposed to come in here, he croaked. And you were? She shot back, eyes burning from smoke. And something deeper. She knelt, checking him over, bruised, dazed, but alive. Relief hit her so hard she nearly swayed. Chris looked up, green eyes meeting hers. I thought I'd never see you again. She gripped his hand. I'm not letting that happen. Then, between the smoke, the noise, the panic, they leaned in. The kiss was fast, fierce, and real. Not for the cameras, not for the program, just them, raw, scared, and finally, honest. It wasn't part of the arrangement. It was the truest thing either of them had done in weeks. The safe house sat tucked away in a quiet town outside Atlanta, nestled between pine trees and the scent of damp earth. Chris sat on the sofa, arm bandaged, eyes tired but fixed on Jennifer as she paced the living room. She checked windows, locks, outlets, every detail like a second skin, like someone always ready for something to go wrong. But the tension wasn't just from the danger outside. I can't sleep, she said softly, not turning around. Chris stood, approaching slowly. You still don't trust me? It's not that, she replied, taking a deep breath. I once trusted someone. He made me believe needing someone was weakness, that being independent was wrong, that silence was love. She gripped her sleeve, voice cracking. When I left, I lost everything, but I've never felt freer. Chris didn't speak. Instead, he pulled out a small leather notebook and handed it to her. What's this? Since the day you moved in, he said. I've written down every time you smiled. Jennifer opened the first page. Today, she sang along to an old song while washing dishes, eyes bright, completely unguarded. Next page, she organizes spices by color, clearly insane, somehow adorable. Jennifer laughed through her tears. Then quietly she said, I want to try, not for the program, not for the house, for me, for you. That morning, the forest around the safe house felt too quiet. While checking the perimeter, Jennifer noticed something unusual on the motion sensor, a small drone sweeping the area. She rushed back. Chris, they're here. Chris was already at his computer, encrypting the last batch of files. I know, they don't want this evidence going public. It wasn't state secrets, but it was damning. Internal records proving Chris's company had sold user data illegally, exploiting system vulnerabilities for massive profit. If exposed, several high-ranking executives would face investigation. You should go, he said. I just need a few more minutes to upload the rest. No, Jennifer said, firm. I'm not leaving you. They moved to the study, the only room with secure backup. Jennifer locked the door, eyeing the external camera feed. A dark SUV had stopped near the edge of the woods. 60 seconds, Chris muttered. That's all I need. Jennifer stood by the door, every sense alert. A soft ping from the computer, upload complete. But at that exact moment, the main power cut out. Backup systems flickered. Someone was trying to wipe it all remotely. Without hesitation, Jennifer pulled Chris away from the desk. "We have to move." Just as they exited the room, a small explosion sounded behind them. The backup drive had been remotely disabled, but the primary data had already been uploaded. Outside, they stumbled into the clearing, breathless. Chris turned to her. "You just saved me." Jennifer looked him dead in the eyes. "No. I chose you and I love you." Inside the ambulance, flashing lights reflected off the gauze wrapped around Jennifer's arm. Chris sat across from her, his clothes smudged with ash but his eyes clearer than ever. "I thought I wouldn't get another chance to say this," he began, voice raspy but steady. "Last time, I proposed because we needed to. This time, I'm asking because I want to." Jennifer turned toward him, heart pounding. "Marry me," Chris said. "Not for the house, not for the program, not to fix anything, just to build something real. With you. Because I love you." She didn't speak, she just reached out, took his hand and held it tight, then nodded, eyes brimming with tears. No more words were needed. 1 year after their first calculated wedding, Jennifer and Chris had completely rewritten the meaning of us. Their second real wedding was held in the most unexpected place, the fire station where Jennifer worked her very first shift. Fairy lights wrapped around freshly polished engines. Firefighters in dress blues stood beside software engineers in tailored suits. Two worlds, now beautifully intertwined. Over the past year, Jennifer was officially promoted to lieutenant, one of the youngest women to ever hold the rank in the Atlanta Fire Department. Chris, having stepped away from his former company, launched a tech startup focused on ethical data protection, promising transparency, fairness, and real privacy for users. But the biggest news came from their quiet little home. Jennifer and Chris were expecting their first child. Amid stacks of paperwork on the kitchen counter sat a small wooden frame holding the baby's ultrasound photo. They didn't stop there. Together, they founded a charitable initiative, Fireproof Hearts, a fund dedicated to helping individuals rebuild after trauma, loss, or major life upheaval. The foundation wasn't just a symbol of their love. It was how they used their story to plant hope in others. Their journey spread not because it was perfect, but because it was real. And because it reminded others that true love can grow from the most unexpected beginnings, if we're brave enough to believe in it and kind enough to hold on to it.